All right, everyone. Here we are again, another conversation with Nicholas Urgero. How are you doing, Nicholas?
I'm doing very, very well. I really appreciate this opportunity once again, John. It's great to talk to you.
Excellent. Yes, I love catching up with old guests, and we have a lot to get into today. So we shall. This is episode 80, by the way, 80. So it's been a crazy 2.5 years, but Nicholas is getting an even number, if that means. I don't know what that means, but you get number 80.
Awesome. Very happy about it.
Excellent, excellent. So, by way of announcements concerning Apocrypha Stasis and Institute for the Humanities, in a few weeks, I will have a nice program put together, as I do every year around this time, around Easter time coming up, of the Ballad of Reading Jail. So I will have set that to music by then, and that's the poem that Oscar Wilde came together with. After his time in jail in the 1890s. So it's a great piece, a lot of Dantean allusions and whatnot. And every year, we take a different approach to it. And so we shall this year as well. So all that information and everything about the college will be at apocrystastasinstitute.wordpress.com, including a very good announcement on the anniversary of the school coming up. We're growing, and we'll keep that under the hat until then, but stay tuned. So enough of that jibber jabber. Tell us, Nicholas, what you've been up to since we spoke last, in August or something?
Yeah, it's been quite a while. Since we last spoke, I was kind of going, I was definitely going more in a negative direction.
I hope it wasn't
But
because of our time together.
no, no. Yeah, you made me start drinking. No. um, no, like because we talked about self-help before, and I still had not fully gone through my own personal demons and shadows, and it was coming to a head once I moved from my dad's house to my mom's house. It was a more positive environment, less toxic environment. So when I was going through my addictions, it was making it even worse for me because I knew how much of a contradiction I was having within myself. And in January 8th of this year, my former partner kind of split things off with me, was pursuing somebody else, and I was at my wit's end basically. I was smoking cannabis. I was looking at adult content. I was yeah, it was just not really good. It was not good whatsoever, and it was things I've been battling with for a long time, and I just completely severed that stuff. Have had basically no issues, no urges, none of that stuff. My brain feels a lot better. I remember I told you about my brain fog that I was experiencing. I couldn't even read a book.
Yes.
None of that stuff. All that was coming from my addictions. Like my whole frontal lobe was not even being utilized anymore. And within like a week, that started coming back. My strength came back. My passion, my integrity, self-esteem came back. Uh, I talked to my mom and my brother about my dark sexual secrets. So I let that stuff come out and it wasn't hidden anymore. I didn't realize it, but I actually basically went through all the 12 steps of like Sex Addiction Anonymous without even realizing what those steps were. I just went through them. My connection with God's gotten better. Just my overall positivity, my mood has improved. So thankfully, it's been like 45 days now of me not doing any of that stuff and cutting out cannabis and all that stuff and coffee and sweets. It's been it's
Even
been
coffee,
incredible.
even coffee.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
a
even coffee.
bold man here.
Yeah, I like all this stuff was really, really easy to me, and there's no way that I'm going back to it. I felt too good for in such a short amount of time. I can't believe I've been able to go through all this stuff in such a rapid process, in such a rapid like time frame. It's been excellent. I'm better than I've ever been, honestly. I feel like a kid again. I don't feel like I'm having all this shame and guilt hanging over me anymore. So I've personally been better since like we first even conversed. And so yeah, I'm doing excellent, very much so. And I've got a job now. I'm doing that stuff. I'm selling things I don't need, like my video games. I'm trying to minimalize. I want to start prepping more through food and water and silver and just anything practical, just nothing that's not serving me. Just trying to focus on the things that I really care about. So it's been really, really excellent.
That's great. So we have you on an up curve, and that's great to hear. And by the way, I will put in the description our previous two videos that we did during the summer three 3, was it? Oh my goodness gracious. So there we go.
Yeah.
Excellent. So it's an honor that you can be back, and we got you in good form, and you're in good form last time, so be in better form this time. How do you like
Yeah.
that?
I put on a brave face.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, what we're going to take our conversation with Nicholas is going to update us about the Freedom Cells and about some other things he's been involved with. And then we're going to transition, of all things, we're going to get on our magic carpet and go over to India and take a look at the farmers and this sort of thing. And what's the connection? Well, I think as Nicholas began, uh, autonomy. Autonomy. We're going to see, frankly, a laboratory of people whose autonomy is being removed. But there's enough fight left in those sorts over there that we don't have very often communally, and we're going to see that it's not covered at all what's happening, except in a few good outlets. I'll give the left their due, right? Democracy Now! Has covered it over in New York City and a few others, but it's largely verboten. They want to tell us about people playing golf and going on vacations and nonsense. So that's where we're going with things. But Nicholas, tell us a bit about some of the work, but your own personal work you've mentioned, if you want to continue there, or if you want to mention some other more social work that you've committed yourself to.
Yeah, so like the past 45 days, it's been basically just all personal stuff. I haven't, I need like, cause I was basically like a shell of my former self. Like I felt like just cashed out. Like I was just done. Like the world, everything just seemed so daunting, especially with 2020, not having the job. It's 2 separate times I lost those, and
Why did you lose your job 2 separate times?
Well, I didn't. Oh, yeah, you're right. Technically, I didn't lose them. I actually just quit because of the mask mandates that they were having. The first one was the temperature checks that really pushed me over the edge. But then I was just not doing the masks anymore. And I've learned a lot more about masks, especially recently from the Last American Vagabond. He's done great exposés on the masks and like bacterial pneumonia or strep, or getting candida yeast infections in your mouth and getting gum disease, losing teeth. Like there's so many negatives associated with long-term mask wearing. And so just for the health aspect, I wasn't doing that too. But yeah, that's why I lost those. I left those jobs, was for those kinds of reasons. But yeah, so 2020 was just really kicking my butt, and 2021 wasn't looking any better for me. And so, so I haven't actually been doing that much reaching out in terms of like building community. But it was good because it had to take a backseat, because my own personal well-being, spiritually and just physically, mentally, is definitely more important, because you really have to take the toxins and all the trauma out of your life first and foremost before you can really go out there and build things that are not going to have that stuff within it. So for me, it was really important for me to get my own house in order and just go back to basics and understand what my priorities are. And it has definitely allowed me to feel more confident in my ability to get more things done, not just within my house or selling things or getting a job, but also in terms of reaching out to other people and feeling like I'm well-bodied, well able to facilitate any sort of growth in terms of community relationships or yeah, that sort of thing. So I would say for anyone that's still hesitant about going out there and building any sort of community or talking to your neighbors, try to look at yourself in the mirror and ask, why is that? Like, why am I so scared? Why am I so nervous? Why am I potentially doubting myself? Why do I feel like I may not have the tools necessary to do this confidently? Like, what are those things that are really holding me back? What has happened in my childhood or recently in my past that's traumatized me or made me use my ego as some sort of self-defense mechanism to just protect myself from getting damaged further? And I would say that that's definitely the most important thing that people can do is work on themselves first and foremost, because if we're traumatized, like I was saying, it's only going to build that same sort of trauma, almost basically like a revolution. Like you take it over with the same sort of mindset, and before you know it, you're basically going back to the same thing, if not to a worse situation. So because I've definitely been that nervous kid, the really shy kid, the one that doesn't really speak up, the one that always procrastinates because he's just uncomfortable and doesn't want to face uncomfortable things or uncomfortable situations. So for me, it's it's been the shadow work, the self-help work that's really been the big motivator and the big push for me to start getting this ball rolling. So I have been communicating with some people. I want to do, I want to communicate with farms in my local area and just see what they have to offer. Like if they're dairy farms or meat farms. I'm doing a lot of vegetables myself this year, as always. So I know that there's other holes within that that someone else can fill. So I can give them food or anything. Like I'm well bodied, you know, I can help them out physically or anything like that for dairy or meat or anything like that. So for me, I'm just trying to get a good catalog of what I have personally in terms of like storage and food and all that stuff, so that I can seek out the things that I'm missing and build relationships that way. Because there's a lot of people that are already really well set up in terms of like farms. So that's something I'm looking into. I forgot exactly what the name of the website is, but also Freedom Cells. I'm contemplating going down to Texas because I know John Bush is down in Texas. There's a really big Freedom Cell community down there. And I know they've been hit with the power outages and the snow. So them coming together for that sort of thing has really been a positive. And so I've been communicating with people down there.
I think, to see how to trial run all this talk about prepping, and there's a great example. And you would you say that do you know if they've their organization and so forth and their cells has that assisted them in a way that you know the general public hasn't down there?
I personally do not know. I've heard rumblings about like the power outages and all that stuff, so I looked into it a little bit, but I haven't really done a deep dive. I haven't been on the Freedom Cell Network website for like a week or so I don't know exactly what's been going on, but I think that it's definitely something that's I know that they definitely are more of a well-knit community. They do like weekly meetings and stuff, so I know that they're not just like connected in a group, but they actually do real world things, and they meet in the real world, and they know each other. So I would assume that they would be more well prepped in that regard, being able to help out each other. Hey, I got this, you don't have this, I'll be able to spare this and give it to you for now, or we can trade or anything like that. So I'm assuming so, but I don't know for sure. But that is a great question, and I definitely want to look into that.
For sure, you'll have to do reporting. You'll be our correspondent down down there when you get down there. So, can you describe, Nicholas, for us an expression you've used twice so far, and that is shadow work?
Yeah. So, so for like me personally, I didn't have the best childhood. It was good to an extent, but I had parents that would fight it all the time. I was physically abused, emotionally abused by my dad fairly often. And so that created a lot of trauma. I was already a self-conscious and really shy kid. I had a hard time speaking up and ordering my food at like a fast food place. I was a really nervous kid. And so those kind of traumas fed into that mindset. And so those traumas end up becoming shadows. It's something that it's hidden in your psyche, and it gets hidden behind your ego, which comes up. Like the ego is basically there to help protect you, help differentiate yourself from your surroundings, to help for survival. But then once you have all these traumas and you're not in that survival situation anymore, the ego kind of steps up and takes over and helps protect you from those sort of traumas, so you don't add more to that. And so for me, I was responding to people in a certain way and making decisions in a certain way based off of things that happened in my past that I wasn't fully aware of. I wasn't fully comprehending what those things were that had happened to me and how they were affecting me. So they became shadows. They were just not really aware. I wasn't aware of them consciously. It was subconscious. So shadow work is basically almost like looking in the mirror and asking the question, what ails me? What ails me? And really just trying to face those uncomfortable feelings and emotions and things in your past and trying to find those connections. A lot of shame was involved for me personally, a lot of guilt. I ended up having strings of bad relationships because of this kind of stuff, especially my addictions. And so me having to face those uncomfortable things, maybe, and also fess up to secrets to my family members, the ones that were compassionate enough to listen, and really just letting all those emotions come out and not suppressing them. I would always suppress it with video games or drugs or sex or whatever would cover that up. So shadow work is really just like just shining a light on all that dark, ugly, all those dark, ugly things that have happened in your life, and observing them and trying to just take all those feelings and really just go through them and accept them, and then forgive yourself for actions that you possibly have taken since then that have caused you to hurt others or to put yourself in a worse position. I would always self-shame myself, call myself an idiot or an asshole or just any number of things. If I would spill a drink, I would just call myself an idiot or whatever. And now it's like, that's not even what I do. I'm like, oh crap, dang it, accident happens, you know. So you're basically just stripping away your shame and your guilt and your traumas, and really just understanding that you're just more of a broken person at a younger age. Like, you're acting from like a younger perspective. A lot of people just don't grow up, and like my own father is a perfect example. He was traumatized as a young kid in certain situations. He just hasn't gone through it yet, and I pray that he does. But like, that's the hardest things for us to do, is to really face our own demons. We always watch TV or listen to music or distract ourselves. I personally have a hard time sitting in a room alone silently, which is it's all about reflection at that time. So yeah, shadow work is just really just sitting alone, being by yourself, but also being able to express yourself to others that are open and willing to listen. And yeah, just going through some of your things that have really traumatized you as a person. And now it's as clear as day why I became the person I am today. It's not any more guesswork. And journaling was also a big thing, part of the shadow work for me, really able to pinpoint what it is that was going on in my own personal life that was huge contradiction within myself. And that brought up a lot of shame as well. So yeah, shadow work is just going through the things that are more in the subconscious. That was a huge, long answer. So I'm sorry.
It was a good answer. That's what matters. It was a good one. Do you think your rejection of the mask at work, which shows obviously a different type of behavior than you said as a younger man, ordering food at a fast food place, would you see that as a step of your growth? I mean, was that conscious, working against that anxiety?
To an extent, for sure. That's an excellent question. And that's also like learning about Mark Passio and just natural law and like objective morality, and just being a principled person that fed into a lot of what I have been doing in terms of like communicating with you, standing up for what's right. Like at Aldi, I got fired for dumpster diving, and I had no qualms about it. I didn't apologize for it because I did nothing wrong. So I had a lot of integrity and passion, and I was correct in so many things. And so it was kind of like a battle, you know, because I guess I wasn't consciously doing it to kind of go against my shadows and my traumas, but it gave me a huge, like, very objective view of, I'm really consistent here and I'm very much not consistent here. So I still had that was my shadows right there, like my addictions and all that stuff, and my self-confidence issues, self-esteem issues. So I didn't consciously do that stuff to battle it, but me being so consistent in one certain area was definitely a wake-up call and like a huge red flag for all this other stuff that I was still battling with, and I felt like I had no way out.
Yeah, that's the old definition of integrity. Is nowadays integrity is a very limited meaning. Like, I don't steal a pen at the post office or something, or I don't embezzle money. But the old definition of integrity is that one's internal thoughts match their actions. And this society doesn't help towards that. I mean, there's a reason people end up addicted to coffee or liquor, or whatever. Particularly men, I think, because everything. This is our type of theme, I suppose, today, is everything wars against autonomy. Everything wars against agency. These are kind of academic-y words about people's own ability to exert their will in their life and in their community. And I gotta wonder, and I've had a drop or two myself in the day, and I won't say I won't have one later on either. But why are there liquor stores in every corner? Why is it so easy to get porn? I gotta wonder, why is it so easy to get sugar all the time? These things are just the society, the man, whatever, puts these things like, hey, here you go, man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, alcohol is deemed an essential service right now. But I remember dentists weren't essential in the beginning during this whole pandemic. Yeah, and like just like you're saying with porn, it's like, especially now with the smartphones, holy hell, these kids that have smartphones at such a young age. I know kids that were like 4 years old that have a better phone than I do, and that was like 3-4 years ago that I saw that. Yeah, it's absolutely terrifying, and a lot of parents don't have that responsibility or that the parenting chops to really understand what's happening and how much damage that kind of stuff causes. Yeah, and then when you're saying about integrity, like your thoughts and your actions. So yeah, for me, it's thoughts, emotions, and my actions. They were not even close to lined up. So that was, and I was aware of it. I at least was very self-aware about it. So that was the first step, is to be at least conscious of it. But
Excellent. So, anything else on the local level, Nicholas? Now that we've set up our strata of as I used to say, charity begins at home, and keep your own house in order and whatever. We have all sorts of sayings. Anything else in that neck of the woods? Now that we've laid our foundation in that regard.
no, I think we basically covered everything that we needed to cover on that.
Okay, so now this is a vital principle. We've been talking about agency, autonomy, and we have to make sure we're all tight down on the individual level. They used to have an old saying. We're going through Dante in the classes now, and we talk about the scholastics. The scholastics used to say, "Grace builds on nature," and as we look at India, what you're seeing is people who. And out in the back and beyond there, they out of the cities and all. In many respects, they don't have the ability to organize like we have, right? They don't have the internet there, but they're to use this grace builds on nature idea, their nature is much more solid. That is to say, that their family ties are more solid. They're more rooted to real life because they're for the moment off the grid or largely or less on the grid than we are, shall we say. And here in North America, we're more advanced in, I suggest, in our decomposition of our society.
Yes.
And so as we look at India, keep in mind that whilst they may appear more primitive, because their nature, grace builds on nature, their nature is more solid. Their connection to each other, to real life is, and so forth. That's going to explain, I argue, maybe Nicholas has another conclusion as we get through this U.S. News and World Report article. I argue that's why they're able to do these big protests and all that. And with that, let's hop along, Nicholas, into this. Do you want to give us any? We'll close with T.S. Eliot and the Hollow Men and what we're not going to be. We'll close there and what the Indians won't be. But we'll start here. So, any insight you want to bring as we jump into this article?
No, you framed it all perfectly. The grace builds on nature, and just like you were saying about the North America, and we're more advanced in the degradation. Like, just everything you said was perfect. So yeah, you got it.
Okay, so before we do even the U.S. News, let me go to a very interestingly named website called Lawfare. And so in this here, they describe what's going on in the subcontinent, and they actually give us the 3 reasons why the farmers are revolting. And we'll build from that. So at the center of the protests are agricultural reforms prompted by Modi's, how do you say that, Nicholas? Help me out.
Haratia?
There we go. Oh, help me out again.
Hanata? I would assume that J is silent. Hanata Party?
Great. BJP for the rest of the time, which pushed 3 laws framing farm-in laws through Parliament in September of 2020. But thanks to the rushed process by which the laws are passed and the government's crackdown on dissent, what might have been a debate over agricultural economics has instead become a political challenge to the ruling party. And then, so the background to that are these three laws. So the response and the crackdown has led to more protests, but the initial pushback actually starts here. You have to read this thing backwards, I suppose. Modi's government passed 3 farming laws in September to drastically change the decades-old system of selling agricultural goods in India in an effort to resolve India's long-standing agricultural crises. Nearly half of India's workforce is employed in agriculture, but farming makes up only around 15% of the country's gross domestic product, a portion that is declining steadily. More than half of farming households are in debt, which has contributed to the crises. All right, we don't need to get so much into the dynamics, but so you have 3 laws. It led to a protest. The government did what it usually does, which is to go in there with big old ham hock fists and start cracking down, and that creates a response from the people. All right, so with that, this is the article that deals more with the uprising. Do you have that article, Nicholas, available to read easily?
Yes.
Okay. Why don't you take it? We'll take it paragraph by paragraph. We won't read the whole thing, but we just want to set the stage here as we comment on this. And then you can tell us a bit about the situation of the farmers overall the past couple of years, and we can add a few other things from there.
All right. So you want me to share my screen?
No.
Or just from this?
Yeah, just so tens of thousands.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Just give me 1 second. Trying to go back out of this. I'll close it. There we go. All right. So tens of thousands of Indian growers have already been camped outside Delhi for nearly 3 months, demanding the repeal of the 3 reform laws that they say will hurt them and benefit large corporations.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government, which introduced these laws last September, has offered to defer the laws but refused to abandon them, arguing that legislation will help farmers get better prices.
Both sides have met for several rounds of negotiations but failed to make any headway, and farmers unions have vowed to carry on the protests until the laws are rolled back.
I want some numbers here. There we go. Okay. A sea of supporters, including tens of thousands of women, began gathering in Barnala early in the day, riding in on the buses, tractors, trailers, and cars. Local police estimate the crowd between, Nicholas?
120,000 and 130,000 eventually gathered,
comprising one of the largest rallies against the laws. And then, so it goes on here, but you have this big sea, and consider the difficulty of gathering so many people in a more rural society. So this is all efforts, we'll say, all effort event there. So Nicholas, let's talk a little bit about the situation of farmers in India over, just things that have trickled to us in the West, because these protests aren't making their way over here, except for some very rarefied outfits. But what are some things that stick into your mind about that, about the situation over there? And again, this is in the context for the viewers of a more traditional society and a more autonomous society having their legs kicked out from under them.
Yeah, and like before we even read the articles, like you were saying, the grace comes from, like, starts with nature, and like they're more primitive, so to speak. They're doing more of the basic stuff for food. They're doing it themselves, growing it themselves. That's, like they were saying, like a big percentage of the Indians are farmers.
Yeah, like half the people are farmers, and the food is 15%. It means that the farming is very crude.
Yes, and yeah, in the past few years, I remember James Corbett did an excellent video. It's a solution video called Guerrilla Gardening. That's what got me into gardening in the first place back in 2017. And it talked about the Indian farmers during the Green Revolution. They were given the seeds, and they were given all the tools needed and the chemicals needed to grow. But then over the course of the years, the soil life eroded, and like their crops were basically done, and they couldn't pay back the loans that they were given in order to start. And so a lot of farmers have been committing suicide over the past several years. And like you were saying, getting their legs, like on such a fundamental level, their whole livelihood just getting completely like wiped out has caused them to kill themselves or to band together and understand like we can't have anything else pass that's going to really affect us. Even they can say it's for better prices, and it's obviously they're always going to say stuff like that. It's for the good of us and to better us and make us stronger. But that's what the Green Revolution said, and they know firsthand how that worked out for them. We were supposed to solve world hunger during that time, and when they were in India as well.
Yes, and you have, you know, these seeds, and they'll work for 2 or 3 years, and then you go back to the big boss man for some more seeds. And
yeah,
then
Terminator seeds, where the seeds are inert once they grow. The seeds that come from the actual fruit or vegetable aren't viable. You cannot grow with them again, so you have to rebuy every single year.
And then they have, and for some viewers here, this is going to be old hat. For others, it'll be new. So this is why we're repeating things that have been somewhat popularized, but not really, over the past couple of years. Another thing is, if the seeds from one field land on, you know, Joe Blow, I don't know, I'm not gonna, I don't even know how to say their names normal. You know, they got weird names over there, but you know, the name from Joe Blow, Indian guy there, and the guy next door, and he has the contract with Monsanto, and his seeds blow over into your yard, right there. The Monsanto attorneys show up and they say, you know, pay up. You're using our copyrighted property. People, you have to realize there's a whole aspect of the legal system that's copywriting DNA, that's copywriting viruses, copywriting cures, copywriting viruses, copywriting cures, copywriting seeds, and so forth. This sounds horrific, right? But this is what's going on. And this whole aspect of life entering into legal. And so the Indians are, in many respects, you know, they're being the guinea pigs.
Yeah, very much so. And yeah, like a few years ago when they took away the top two denominations for their currency, a lot of people didn't have internet or a bank account. So some of them weren't even aware that this was on a timetable where you only had like 2 weeks to turn that stuff in to cash it out for the smaller denominations. So a lot of people have been screwed over in that aspect. And in terms of like the ID, the digital IDs, taking the biometrics of all the citizens, they've been going through a lot recently. And just like with Africa, it's one of the test beds. And it's also a good way to see psychologically how people react to that sort of thing, especially with, like you're saying, the people in India. They're definitely more tight knit. They're not just all digital in the digital realm where they're not communicating with people that are like in the same room as them. You know, these people are definitely more active on the ground, feet in the soil type of people. And just seeing how they're reacting is definitely a good litmus test for people that are a lot more docile, like the American people.
Yes, I mean, I've been so struck by yes, that's the word. Thank you, Nick. Docile. I mean, there's a good sense of docile. I must get it in. I mean, docile on one level means teachable, right? Sometimes we get students who are less docile than they ought to be, and it doesn't, you know, kind of waste their time. But docile is also this more general understanding, which you were alluding to here, of, you know, no agency, no pushback, no manliness. Can we still use that word? No, none of that. And compare, I was doing this in March and April, talking to people. You compare the last time that everyone's attention was turned in the West. You put that in the context of COVID last year and March and April, right? And everything was shut down. And the last parallel to that, where there was an event which had sucked in everyone's attention, would be World War I or World War II. I mean, we could argue different other things here or there, but in the West, There were, go back 50 years, 100 years, there were revolutions, there were all these pockets jumping up. There were, I'm not saying that would have been good or bad this time around, but I'm just saying that nothing. I mean, there was nothing, and people led around by the nose in the past year, just building off of that. And the Indians aren't at that level of they've not been in the system long enough. And you can still see the same type of fight that you see the Indians having is the same type of fight the so-called white people had 100 or 200 years ago.
Yeah. And like you were saying with manliness, that's a perfect example. Like with me, with my addiction, like, I guess it's a little uncomfortable to say, but, like pleasing yourself as a man and expelling your essence all the time, multiple times a day, like you lose vitamins, minerals, and testosterone. So that was a huge factor for me. When I stopped doing that, within 7 days, my strength and my passion and my drive, it went from in that lower area, it came up to like my chest and my brain, and like I felt a lot more. I felt I was really strong. I felt a huge surge in strength and passion and drive, and I felt a lot more capable of getting things done. A lot more confidence in myself. So low testosterone is a huge part, has a huge part to play in that. I know there's a huge swath of people in America, especially boys that are like in their 20s that have like low testosterone or just don't have a good, drive, and they've lowered the threshold for what normal testosterone is over the years, which has been a big factor in creating more docile, more weak men aren't willing to stand up.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's just wearing people down, slow the system. I don't think it's a mistake. I do think there are agendas in this neck of the woods, just wearing people down, and you can see it, and that's why you have equally egregious economic things happening here. They don't have to do with farming, but the men here don't do anything. And do anything, or when they do, like on the 6th of January, or in Occupy Wall Street, or with the Bundy Ranch twice, it's sloppy, it's half-hearted, and nobody shows up, and then they all go home after a few days. Or there is a fight, but it's a feminine fight insofar as it collapses and can't keep up the intensity for any length. That's what I see in the truth community, right? Even in the rare instances over the last 10 or 15 years where people have done something, they don't have the staying power.
Yeah. And when like you were saying with as much as like it's iffy really about that whole capital thing with like all the photo ops and all that stuff. There's a lot more to it than that, but it's
Yes.
like, but yeah, like a lot of that frustration builds up, and we're just so inactive for such a long time that all that anger and frustration can just like shoot sideways, and so it can come out in a really sloppy, unprepared way, and then when it doesn't work out the way we intended it to, and it hasn't happened fast enough because we just want everything to happen within a split second. Oh, we're going to change the system right now. We just got to vote in these people, or just take this pill, or do this or that. So like if it doesn't work out the way we want to in a timely manner, then we're just going to fold and give up and pack up and go home. And that's not, it's not how things get really accomplished. And especially if you're not a tight knit community, you don't know who really is everyone around you during those like events and coming together. So, and you still have so many distractions when you go home. So it's an easy thing with these people in India. It's like, this is our life right here, and we gotta do something about it. And what was I gonna say about like the lockdown protests in the summer of 2020? Like I remember my brother was like saying, "Oh wow, look at people are really waking up." And it's like, yeah, people are definitely standing up in their like their businesses are being shut down, or they can't go to work, and all these things, and it's great, but it's what kind of context do they have, and what context are they acting on, and what's their main goal? Are they just wanting to release the lockdown and then everything's peachy, or do they think that there's something really inherently wrong structurally within this system that we're in? And then we're not gonna stop at the lockdown. We're gonna keep pushing and say, no, we don't want this anymore. We don't want this anymore. And it turned out it was just lockdowns, and it kind of fizzled out, and it didn't really go anywhere, unfortunately, as much as I was rooting for that to be the case in a positive way. But yeah, things like that, just to go to your point.
Yeah, so here's one example beyond the police crackdown in India. Again, we're making a parallel. I hope people are seeing that. We started with the conclusion, or we started rather with a consideration of autonomy on the individual level, and that we've spent the balance of the show here making a parallel between Western so-called modern society, like here in America, and then India, so-called second world society, and yet they have more tools to work with. Another fine example, people might get uncomfortable with me saying this, but another fine example would be the response of the Muslim world to the invasions, particularly of Iraq and in Syria and all the and those would be the best examples over the past couple of years of, again, more traditional societies, and they pushed back real hard, and they sent the United States Marines running like rabbits a few times, and the powers that be don't like that, and so they've been doing their massaging over there in their own way, and we'll see what comes of it. But you're seeing phenomena, whether it's these Indian protests or physical force reactions in the Middle East, to the agenda, which the so-called white people are not able to do at this point because we're so dissipated, we're so drunk, we're so without agency. All right, so here's the next bit here. Can you read that here, Nicholas? We'll just go do a few paragraphs to get the gist of it.
Yeah. The COVID lockdown has already increased digital transactions. Ramping up internet access, security will provide another boost.
Digital payments. Now, this was rolled out, well, here we go, 2018 and 19. Digital payments in India began to boom even before any of us had heard of coronavirus. Just between 2018 and 19, our country, this is the Hindu, so I'm assuming our country is India, saw a mammoth growth of 383% in digital payments. In 2020, easing of the national lockdown saw an uptick of digital transactions at 2.18 lakh krone in May, primarily due to the fear of contacting COVID-19. So they were pushing, just think they were playing around with a little bit here. It looks like they pushed way more beforehand, yes, 2018 and 19, but especially under the guise of safety against coronavirus to push for digital. Apart from convenience, digital payments offer the promise of greater transparency and yada, yada, yada. This is kind of a running cover piece, nothing elitist about it. But finish up here, Nicholas, with this bit.
Going cashless
it's
offers
a PR
many
thing.
benefits.
I mean, this is a PR thing overall. So
yeah, going cashless offers many benefits for economically developing countries such as ours. So it comes as no surprise that one of the tenets of the Digital India mission is the establishment of a faceless, paperless, cashless India. We are in good company as Asia leads the world in the adoption of cashless payments, led by China with more than 600 million users, as reported by Fortune. More than half of South Korea's 1,600 bank branches no longer deal with cash, and several government institutions are already cashless, says a global data report. This is the trend world over, making the move to digital transactions almost inevitable at this point.
all right, so that's the big push there. But again, it's what I'm seeing, and let me know what you think, Nicholas, about this, is you have these traditional societies. You mentioned Africa a couple of times as a fine example, and they're very sharp onto the agenda. The Africans, they don't they've had about 300 years, 400 years experience of the agenda, but you're having these somewhat pre-modern societies. And they're giving pushback to the system. And so this is a way to, as we've said, cut their legs out from under them.
Oh, yes, but yeah, especially if they're not, they haven't been really inundated with the technology aspect. They've been kind of rolling it out now. But yeah, a lot of people didn't have bank accounts and all that jazz. So it's, yeah, I didn't realize how much India was getting going digital. I knew that they were doing like the biometrics, but I didn't realize how much they were really doing the digital transactions. And then I know South Korea has been really big on like 5G, and they're really big in the gaming scene, and they've been like taking all this stuff in. But yeah, yeah, they're putting it in such a positive light when in fact it's just such a lack of privacy and lack of freedom. And like people like me and people like you are totally going to be on that type of China list where, oh, you spoke out against us or against this organization. Sorry, you're not going to go to this restaurant or this supermarket or this train. You can't travel. The smart cities, the innovation zones that they're having in Nevada now, where tech companies are able to just build a city, their own kind of government city. It's like unbelievable. And then I'm sure that's going to be all digital as well. And I think the whole context of COVID and then cash is dirty. I thought at the time that it was brilliant. I was like, wow, that's such a great idea to really scare the bejesus out of people and just say, hey, it's just so dirty and disgusting. Even though we can print out new ones if we wanted to, we do that. But I thought that was a great context, super smart on their part. As much as I hate them and their agenda, I think just a lot of what they've done is just really clever, especially doing it in more of these areas and countries that they've been doing it in. They haven't done it really in America yet. They've talked about the cashless stuff, but they haven't done it yet. So yeah, they use these other places as test beds, and it's a great way, especially the people that are way more connected locally. They're way more organized in that sense.
It's an aside here. Well, our final piece before we bring it back to the local and to the individual and sign off here. But it is a worthy aside that could be its own show. I've only heard one person mention this. It's not my idea, but it's intriguing. And that is that we know going back to the 50s that state decisions have been made by computers. There's an example that Reza Jordani, who's a philosopher, I think from Canada, uses of MacArthur's decision, or rather Eisenhower's decision not to use the atomic bomb was made by a computer. And as Jordani points out, the irony is that MacArthur, who famously confronted Eisenhower, MacArthur ends up working for that company, that same intelligence company afterwards. But the side that I don't know if you've heard anything to this effect, but it's been knocking around my brain. How much right now of state decisions are being made by computers? Because if you look at the papers, there are things happening that don't make sense even within the system, even within assuming all of the parameters of those systems. It doesn't even make sense. It comes like AI. It kind of comes close, like that Sophia robot kind of looks like a person, but it never can quite be. And that's why it's in this line of thinking, why so much of the last year has seemed slightly off or / very predictable. If a computer was or multiple computers in confederacy with each other were making these sorts of decisions, it would help to explain this weird flavor to the past year.
Wow, that's a good point. I know with like the advent of like quantum computers, that's a whole different ball game in terms of like processing and all that stuff. I know that they do have not like an AI per se, but I know that they've digitized every single person in, like, I forgot if it's the CIA or something, but it's like this big computer program where they put everyone on the planet like digitally, and they can run tests and simulations and all that jazz. So that's not AI per se, but they've used programs to kind of just test things out. But yeah, on the AI front, I am not sure. I mean, I know with like was it like Amazon? I know Amazon's done some stuff with AI, but yeah, I can't really comment too much on that. But that's a good point.
Yeah,
It's
keep
really,
your
really
finger
good point.
to the wind with that. Keep your finger to the wind, because I think there may be something to that on some level. Doesn't mean everything's being decided by computers. The last point here is something which I periodically like to bring up, again, in the context of India, and then also we're way deeper into this than other parts of the world. Statelessness. Right now, this is from the United States Refugee Agency. Statelessness. Oh, Nicholas, all that straw man stuff is made up. There's no such thing as the straw man. It's all just hype online. You must have just read it online. Really? Oh, really? There's no such difference between the legal person and the man. Okay, Nicholas, you're gonna do your last duty here of reading. We're gonna
All
do
right.
this, and you have to put it in nice, real smarmy tones, like you really care about people. You're working for the UN. Um, okay, you gotta get that grease through your hair, right? Get that grease all over you. Here we go. Take it away.
Okay. The 1954 Convention relating to the status of stateless persons establishes the legal definition for stateless persons as individuals who are not considered citizens or nationals under the operation of the law of any country. A person, our webcams are kind of blocking the thing,
Oh,
but a person, I believe, or citizenship and nationality may be determined based on the laws of the country, of a country where an individual is born or her or his parents were born. A person can also lose citizenship and nationality in a number of ways, including when a country ceases to exist or a country adopts nationality laws that discriminate against certain groups.
the UNHCR has released the Handbook of Protection of Stateless People
What?
that helps to explain that. Oh my goodness, I think there's a whole series here. I'm getting thoughts in my head. That helps to explain the definition of statelessness and procedural considerations, determining whether a person is stateless. These documents serve as a guiding principle for countries, but the remedies available to stateless persons vary by country. I'm still not getting why I should be at all concerned about this, Nicholas. Would you read on?
Yeah. The United States does not currently make determinations about whether someone is stateless. In addition, the fact that a person is stateless does not provide her or him with any benefit or status under U.S. law. If a stateless person in the United States is ordered removed, some of the hardships that she or he might experience or face include.
Okay, now I'm going to do some of these, but you're going to do other ones. They're going to be very, very intimidating, Nicholas, right? If you don't get a legal person, if you're not a part of a state, inability to obtain travel documents. Number 2.
Long-term family separation due to that lack of travel documents.
Number
Po
3. Possibility of being held in immigration detention for months or longer.
Number 4, periodic reporting to immigration authorities on orders of supervision.
More sighing, quick. Oh, no. Number 5, requirements to request travel documents from all countries to which he or she may have a claim to citizenship, either based on his or her parentage or place of birth. But they're not persons, so what does this have to do?
Number 6, requirements to contact third countries to ask their permission to be removed there, regardless of whether that individual has ties to that country.
Requirements to apply annually for work authorization. Nicholas, if I don't have a legal person, I can't ask somebody for permission to work. Oh my goodness. What will we do?
Yeah.
Okay,
unbelievable.
Do this next part.
United Stateless is a national organization led by stateless people whose mission is to build and inspire community among those affected by statelessness and to advocate for their human rights. United Stateless can be contacted at info@unitedstateless.org or by filling out the contact form on their website.
Now, what's very, very interesting about this reminds me of that Twilight Zone episode where the model is, she's had multiple surgeries and they're about to remove her bandages. The whole episode of the Twilight Zone leads up to this, and you don't know the switch, but at the end of the day, oh no, the surgery didn't work. And then you find out everyone else is hideously deformed and she looks like a supermodel and she has to go live off in a colony like a leper. And so that's what this reminds me of. United Stateless, like they have to have like colonies of people without legal identities.
I didn't even know this was a thing.
Exactly. Right. But they're pushing hard for this in India. I believe this is one of the reasons NATO broke up a lot of the Arab countries, because it flooded Africans and Asians into Europe, and it puts them right, not into the land of freedom, it puts them right into the maw or the hands even of the legal system. That I think is one of the reasons that those Arab Springs were steered in the direction they were.
I know. Look at, you just said like in the hands of them, and then look at the symbol for them. It's literally
Thank you.
hands holding a person.
Let's pull this up here. That's an excellent, Nicholas. Excellent.
Like literally, you just said that. And I'm like, what?
Oh, I want my. Oh, here are the hands.
Hey, there we go. Got the
there's more
world.
hands. No, not the world's in the hands. We could do a whole other episode on that, just trying to decipher these sigils and these magic emblems. You know, the world's in the hands here, and then the hands in the upper left, you can see, are making a building, a really creepy building around a person. Right. What is it? All state has the same. The hands. You're in good hands. Then we could do a whole thing about the hands in the legal system, mort main, and then we can go on and on, but we won't do it right now. But that's an excellent insight, Nicholas. The other thing I noticed here, right? Stateless people need to band together to advocate for their human rights. I thought rights in the liberal nation state system were inherent from God. Why should people who it should be irrelevant. I'm not saying this is my opinion or not, but according to that system, it should be irrelevant whether they have nation state status of straw man, unless something else is at work here, unless there's another dynamic which they're admitting to, but they're not admitting to. It's there, but it's not there, which I'm suggesting. Okay, but Nicholas is very important for our viewers here. Please read this sentence.
United Stateless can be contacted at info@unitedstateless.org or by filling out the contact form on their website.
Okay, now we don't know who's going to be watching this, so we got to get the resources out there in case they're not. We want Indian people. I mean, this is basically Indian people. You need to get deeper in the system. You can't be having these protests, Nicholas. This is unacceptable. You just need to be as inert as North Americans. Just take everything that's given to you. Monsanto every day to Sunday. So we have these here. You can take a screenshot, and we won't read it all here, but very necessary information. Very necessary information. Now I'll go back to behaving myself.
Oh, there was a 1954 treaty on statelessness.
Oh, let's bring that up.
Like what? Like in the resources at the
quick
bottom.
On the uptake there.
You're quick on the,
where are we?
1950. 60. Oh yeah, 1954 Convention on Statelessness, and Convention on the Reduction of Statelessness. It's like I never even heard that term, stateless and statelessness, in terms of people.
Because what's behind this is the digital person that they're trying to build. So they're trying to merge this the straw man person, which you can't get a job in their system. You can't do there is a joking aside and scary voices, within that system, there's a certain truth to what they're saying here. So they're going to merge that symbol of tyranny, or that tool of tyranny, the legal person, with the digital person, right? And they're going to merge that. And that, I think, explains some of the anxiety you see in the powers that be to get people onto the system more and more, right? So they have all the stupid white people. They're already deep in the system. 8 ways to Sunday. They're using that paper money. Now they're using the digital money. They're just, whatever. They're deep in the porn stuff. They got them drunk all the time, right? So just in time to merge them. And so now we need to get the more virile and the more connected to reality Africans and Arabs and Asians. We need to get them deeper into the system, right? Because they need to be ready. Everyone needs to get that digital person.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's an absolutely great point. Like as aware as I was, and how much as I was willing to stand up to all this stuff, like I was still just so inundated with the garbage that it was making me crippled. It literally crippled me. Like I was just cashed out. I was just like, I'm done. Like just someone, like God, just take me already. Like I'm just I don't want to face any of this uncomfortable stuff. Like it's so daunting. Where am I going to live? All this crap. I mean, like look at all the foreclosures that are. Luckily, they extended it to June, but like I was gonna have to find some place to live back or at the end of March if they didn't extend it. So. And then like the food stuff, like the whole COVID stuff has really just crippled the whole food system globally. Places like Vietnam are not exporting rice anymore. Australia had to choose between cotton and rice. They chose cotton. So they weren't growing anything. China is already pre-purchasing things that we haven't even grown yet this season. They already pre-purchased a lot of stuff. We're purposely exporting more than we are like realistically allowed or should export. Canada's doing the same thing. Oh, we got plenty, as if they've never cooked the books or done anything like that to make it seem like they have more than they really do. Fort Knox. Yeah, it's like we're literally shooting ourselves in the foot on purpose. They know that if they cut the food, like that's basically it. And then Bill Gates buying up all the farmland. He owns a lot of the railways up north in Canada. It's very scary, and if people aren't awake to what's happening, they're not going to be making proper decisions and not preparing in the proper ways. And then they're going to be at the behest. They'll gladly, or if they do like a debt jubilee, all these kids with college debt. Oh, you got $40,000. We'll wipe that if you just do digital, for your own good. Then people are going to line up. If the more desperate people are, the more willing they're going to be to line up and just do whatever they're told. And that's where just being well aware of these things, at least to enough of an extent to understand you have to act on it. You don't have to know all the nitty gritty and all the names and all the dates, but just knowing enough about the plan of what's happening and what they're trying to accomplish, then you can just go in that opposite direction and say no thanks, and then talk to your neighbors. And I gotta start doing a lot more of that stuff too. I'm in the same boat as you guys.
Because what you're seeing in Africa and India and the Middle East is the agenda, the powers that be, some confederated interests. You can go on about who they are, but it exists. They're trying to they're trying to do in a short amount of time with those communities, right? What we've seen in the West for 300 years, right? What we're seeing now in the West, the docility that Nicholas speaks of, right? This is 3, even more 100 years in the making of wearing down and massaging things and steering things into a certain direction. And 300 years is condensed now into a few decades in those parts of the world, right? Because the system believes it's at its apogee. It wants to, it wants to move to the next level, right? And that next level can't happen unless everyone is incorporated in to that system. And the last thing before Nicholas gives us a sign off and tells us where we can find out about his channel and this, that, and the other, is something that came up, and that is a poem by T.S. Eliot. This, if we don't do that shadow work, if we don't kick the bad habits and whatever, this is what we end up as. So, would you read the? We'll just do the first stanza here. You want me to send it to you in the chat here, Nicholas? So you probably read it easier.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, actually, I can read it. I can't send it to you in the chat because there is no chat on Zoom. I'll just blow it up real good here. This is working man's operation. We don't have all sorts of producers here. Can you read that all right on your screen?
Yes.
Okay, break it down.
All right. The Hollow Men. Mr. Kurtz, he dead. A penny for the old guy. We are the hollow men.
We are not. This is what we are not, but this is what the agenda wants us to be. Go on.
Yeah. We are the hollow men. We are the stuffed men, leaning together, headpiece filled with straw. Alas, our dried voices, when we whisper together, are quiet and meaningless, as wind in dry grass or rat's feet over broken glass in our dry cellar. Shape without form, shade without color, paralyzed force, gesture without motion. Those who have crossed with direct eyes to death's over kingdom, remember us if at all not as lost, violent souls, but only as the hollow men, the stuffed men. That's quite powerful.
Yes, indeed. And now the immediate context of that were men from the First World War, but the agenda's continued, and that hollowness has continued as well. But not if we take Nicholas's counsel here. So give us a summary of that, Nicholas. Tell us afterwards where we can find out about your work.
Yeah, I'm not going to list this one first, but I'm on odyssey.com, library.tv. I'm on bitshoot.com, and then I'm also on YouTube, and I'm also on float.app. I don't post much on there, but I am on there. I'm also on minds.com. I would say being on any of these other platforms, BitChute, Odyssey, Minds, Float, those are all way better alternatives to Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. I haven't experienced any sort of censorship. I get a lot more views on that stuff. So if any content creators are out there and you haven't gone on that into these other platforms, now is the time to do so. You're already late to the party. There's definitely a lot of good stuff going on, especially with Odyssey. That's totally a YouTube killer. It's getting a lot bigger every single day. It's a great place to be. And if you're a YouTube creator, you can actually sign up there and link all your YouTube videos. So like all of them are already on there. So for you, John, if you haven't signed up for that yet, you can link your YouTube stuff and it's all going to be uploaded without any sort of hassle, like with BitChute, where you have to like re-upload everything.
I was going to say that.
And you're lucky if it even uploads still. I've been having problems with my most recent videos because I've been talking about self-help in my videos recently, like the past like 6 or so. And some of them I couldn't even get onto BitChute for some reason. It was stuck in that publish upload limbo again, which I haven't had the problem with for quite a while. So it's kind of sad, but it might be because they were getting an influx of new people. I don't know, but Odyssey is a way better platform, honestly.
Yeah,
And it'll be, especially with you, with all your uploads. Oh my God, you have so many uploads. You're so consistent, and it's such a good thing to see. And for you, it'll be a lot easier. No muss, no fuss.
Great, I'll look into that. I was going to say, you know, you must really be doing some personal, some new vistas of personal work to be having the patience to be on BitChute, because that is it's the only other alternative. I do a bit on Gab and whatever, but yeah, BitChute is unfortunately I guess it doesn't have the capital to really develop better servers, but that's another talk. I'll put all of your links there, Nicholas, in the description. And what would be a good send off? What would be some good counsel, some good personal reflective meditative fodder, whatever that you could send us on our way with?
For people who are wanting to do some meditation, I would say the Headspace app. It's on iOS and Android. That I've personally been using that, or have used it too, and it's really good. It's got a lot of guided meditations just to get your feet wet in that category. It's definitely great for self-reflection and also being able to kind of center yourself if you're feeling anxious or overwhelmed. For anyone that's battling with sex addiction, this gentleman, Patrick Carnes, he has a book called Out of the Shadows. My therapist actually recommended that book. I've been reading it. I've been looking into his lectures. Him and his daughter have a bunch of lectures. That's definitely given me a lot of good insight, for sure. Very positive. The 2020 was a shit show. 2021 seems to be going in a worse direction. And so the last thing you want to do is be in a poor mental state. And while things are getting worse, you want to have your own house in order before this stuff really starts getting pedal to the metal. It's only going to make things harder. You don't want to have to deal with any of these sorts of uncomfortable feelings and emotions in a time when there's a crisis, or when you have to worry about whether you're going to be fed or not that night. Now is the time to face the uncomfortable emotions and feelings and really stand up to the occasion. I'm a perfect example. Just a month and a half ago, I was a shell of my former. I was a hollow man, literally a hollow man. That poem is very powerful, and I was just ready to just give up. I didn't want to even do anything. I didn't even want to go outside for a walk. And now I'm willing to just shed all my toxic stuff, shed things that aren't serving me, focus on the things that are, be appreciative. I pray all the time now. I appreciate everything I'm able to do. It's cold outside. People in Chicago are houseless, and I'm able to sit here comfortably and communicate with a wonderful gentleman, and hopefully inspire other people to really step up their game and really just try to get practical things done, weed out the inconsistencies, get your thoughts and your emotions and your actions all lined up as best you can. Bring that integrity up, boost your testosterone any way you can, work out, exercise, anything that you can do in your own life to help put yourself in a better mindset. And yeah, let's just keep working on ourselves first and foremost, because then we'll be able to do a lot better, make a much bigger impact. We'll be more resilient, and we'll be more capable of battling with hardship.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Nicholas, for your insights there and helping to digest the local situation and then make some comparisons farther afield. And all of that will be in the description, all the links and whatnot. And thank you, viewers, for watching. If you're interested in my work with Apocrypha Stacy's, please check out apocryphastacysinstitute.wordpress.com. The course listing for the summer session is not up, but it will be shortly. So keep an eye on that website, because we do have an announcement coming up in about a month and a half or so, or a little bit before Easter is the anniversary of the school there. So very good, Nicholas. Thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it so much. It's great talking to you again. God bless you, and just keep doing what you're doing. You're doing an excellent job.